D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Adam Vingan and Derek Mason here with you. Willie Donick will be joining Chase McCabe from 2 to 6 today, filling in for Jared, who filled in for Chase and Big Joe before our show. From 9 to 11, we had to switch some things around today. First, I want to congratulate our own Big Joe Dubin, who became a grandfather last night.
Congrats, Joe, Grandpapa Joe.
Daughter Hannah gave birth to a baby girl. Both are doing well, according to Chase. So Big Joe will be out the rest of the week celebrating the birth of his grandchild. It's a wonderful feeling. I know that when my son was born, how proud my parents were to become grandparents. I'm sure you'll feel that way one day. It is pretty incredible to watch, like, from my perspective, watching my parents become grandparents and seeing the kind of grandparents they are. My dad was never one, and he was never one who was in touch with his emotions. Not a warm and cuddly guy. He is that way with my son. It's really heartwarming to see. So, congratulations to Big Joe Dubin on becoming a grandfather. Willie will join us at the start of the second hour for silly underdog picks because, of course, he is the commissioner. He does need to be a part of it.
Yeah, no days off for the commissioner.
No days off for the commissioner. And by the way, if you want to see Willie and Chase live, they will be out at the Pella grand opening at 256 East Main Street in Hendersonville today. They will be on location broadcasting from 2 to 6, filling in for Jared. And speaking of Jared, yesterday, Derek, I had the opportunity, the honor to moderate Jared versus Joe, which is always a wonderful time.
It's always a big deal.
It's
like moderating Stephen A. Smith and
Skip Bayless.
No, not
Shannon
Skip
Sharp.
Bayless. No,
Max
Kellerman.
Max Kellerman.
I guess you could say Max.
Yeah.
Yes.
Stephen A. Smith versus somebody.
Or I was gonna say why am I forgetting his name that's on there now?
Oh, Mad Dog?
Or Mad Dog Russo.
Chris Russo. Yes.
I think that's better.
I think it's like being a moderator between those two.
So one of my favorite moments of Jared versus Joe is when the two of them get so worked up, they just start bickering at each other. You know, Joe's on the phone, Jared's on air. There was one time, I don't remember what the conversation was, but Jared said, "Shut up, Joe." And then Joe over the phone said, "You shut up." It's like two stepbrothers going at it, basically.
Remember, Joe has a short fuse, too. He says that.
He does have a short fuse, particularly when it comes to Jared. But I bring up Jared versus Joe yesterday because, as the moderator, I had to come up with the questions. So my final question to Jared and Joe was, what would it say about the Tennessee Titans, and specifically Amy Adams Strunk, if the organization were to fire 2 general managers in a 3-season span? Because Jared is at the head of the Fire Ran Carthon and Chad Brinker parade.
Yes, he is.
So the competition was going well. They were both making excellent points until Jared said it would be, quote unquote, courageous of Amy Adams that she was taking responsibility for hiring, in his mind, the wrong people to lead the organization. Derek, you and I had a conversation earlier this week about how long does a general manager need for us to get a proper evaluation? Correct me if I'm wrong. You said three seasons, 2 to 3 years.
So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but my point is that what Jared has emphasized is that Ran Carthon and Chad Brinker were not experienced enough to be leading the football operations of an NFL team. although they had put in work with other organizations, they were not in prominent positions. They're not former general managers or, player personnel, head of player personnel, whatever. So you have taken umbrage with Jared saying that Ran Carthon and Chad Brinker, I hope I have this right, because if I don't, Jared is ultimately going to text me to correct me because he's very particular about language. You have said that you take umbrage with Jared's perception that Carthon and Brinker are not football people, quote unquote, or they need football people in those positions.
Yeah. And those were the words coming out of his mouth, like Chris Tucker said, do you understand the words that is coming out of my mouth? Okay. And that's what Jared continues to say, basically, is I hope you're understanding the words that are coming out of my mouth, because what I'm saying is they need football people in the building. And if you say that too many times, or if you say that enough, then your listeners, which are great listeners, we have great listeners across this platform, people that are engaging, listeners that are engaging and they love their team. And I hear it every day, not just on our stage, on our show, but on Chase's show and the morning show and obviously Jared's show, Chase and Big Joe, excuse me, and then Jared's show. So we have some wonderful listeners, but listeners do fall into the trap, just like a lot of people, whether it be sports or politics. If you hear something over and over and over again, and you don't do your own homework, then you tend to believe what the person is saying. That's just the way it is. That's why you hear politicians saying things over and over and over. They don't care if it's a lie, because you're not going to go fact check it. And what you're going to do is just believe what they're saying, And that is what's happening here. I think Jared has said this so many times that now the listeners are starting to believe it. It's not Jared's fault. Go and fact check all of this as he's saying it, because here's a resume I want to show. I want to give you. Graduate assistant, linebackers coach. Okay, that's just coaching. Area scout, 02 to 05, regional scout, 06 to 07, assistant director of college scouting, 2008, director of college scouting, 2009 through 12, director of player personnel, 13 through 15, 2013 to 2015, and then general manager from 2016 to 2022. That's one resume. Here's the other resume. Pro Scout, 08 to 11. Director of Player Personnel, 12 to 16. Director of Pro Personnel, 17 to 20. Director of Player Personnel, 21 to 22. General Manager, Executive Vice President, General Manager. But let's just stop at General Manager. Those resumes sound exactly the same, don't they? Pretty much.
Fairly similar.
Yeah, they're fairly similar. One was John Robinson and one was Ran Carthon. We never said that John Robinson, you need to get some football. John Robinson they need to get a football guy in there in place of John Robinson. John Robinson did the same thing. They did the same thing to John Robinson, what they're doing now to Ran Carthon. He had an experienced coach. He didn't want that coach. John Robinson didn't want Mike Mularkey. So what did they do? They changed him the next following season, even though he went to a playoff and won a game. Nope, we want our guy in. So what did you do? Get a coach with no head coaching experience whatsoever and a second-year GM. You put those two together. I never heard anybody say, oh, they too young. Oh, they don't know what they're doing. You got a first-year head coach and a second-year GM. Nobody ever said that. Why? Because this team was already built. They already had pieces in place, veteran guys in place. And that stems from the coach prior and the GM prior. Now the GM prior to that wasn't getting the work done or the job done, so they changed GM. But they had the players. Same thing is happening here. The same exact thing. For Jared to consistently say Ran is not a football guy is a lie. He is a football guy.
Lo and behold, I have received a text
I knew it. I knew
from
it.
Jared Stillman. Move over, Joe Hendry. Say his name, and he appears.
It's like Candyman.
Yes.
It's like you say Beetlejuice 3 times. He just
Exactly.
appears.
Beetlejuice. I ain't saying it
Say
again.
his name, and he appears. Jared Stillman. These were the texts that I received while you were speaking, Derek. Quote, my point was that they, meaning Brinker and Carthon, are morons. They don't know football. The line isn't that they aren't football people. The line is they don't know football, and I stand by it.
Again, if they didn't know football, they wouldn't have gotten the job that they got, meaning GM. Now, I don't know the Brinker thing. Yeah, that is kind of that doesn't make sense to me. Like, who's really running things? And I do agree with him on that aspect as far as like who's running this operation. Is it the GM / vice president, or is it the president? That he does have a point there, because when John Robinson was here, we knew exactly who was running the team. John Robinson was. And then it got to a point, obviously, John Robinson and Mike Vrabel, there may have been a tug of war there. And ultimately, she dismissed one, and then a year later, dismissed the other, because there probably was, again, a tug of war. Who has the most power? To say that Rand doesn't know what he's doing, I think is unacceptable. It really is.
Two things can be true, I feel like. That Rand Carthon has experience in football, and that his tenure as Titans general manager has not gone well so far. Two things can be true. Like, a seasoned general manager, and this is something else that's also interesting to me, Derek, and this is anecdotal, so you can tell me if I'm incorrect.
Okay.
In the NFL, it does seem that seasoned general managers do not get second chances a lot. Let's think about John Robinson. Now, I'm sure part of the reason why maybe John Robinson isn't quick to find a job is, if I'm not mistaken, he's still being paid by the Titans for the contract that he received that he didn't complete because he was fired. So he may not be in a rush to find a new job. But would any of us be surprised if John Robinson was never an NFL general manager again? I don't think so. I just, again, anecdotal. It feels like in the NFL that you really have one shot.
Yeah, you got one shot.
You've got one shot. Now, this is the opposite, which I can speak to from experience. In the NHL, it's almost the exact opposite. It feels like NHL teams recycle the same general managers. You know, someone gets fired and there are 4 or 5, experienced GMs that are out of a job, and that team ultimately picks from that pool of guys. So in the NHL, it's the opposite. In the NHL, there's always a conversation about fresh blood in the front office, fresh blood as general manager. That's not the problem in the NFL. It seems like it's always looking for the next
fresh
big
blood,
thing.
Yeah.
It's that the retreads are few and far between.
Yeah, for some reason, it seems as if the NFL, and I don't know if they do it in basketball or in MLB, but when you're talking about recycling GMs, that's not something that teams typically do. Once you have proven either you can't or can do the job, if you can do the job, they're going to hold on to you as long as possible. If you can't do the job, then they're going to replace you with someone else, and they're not looking back to retread, or another team is not looking to hire you. One of the greatest GMs that I know, Floyd Reese, he never got another opportunity to be GM, but he worked for other organizations in certain capacities. But for some reason, the NFL is like this sport where you're only going to get one shot at being GM, and if you can't do it, then we're going to go to the next hottest guy, unless you retired on your own, and then people are clamoring or to get you, and they're offering you huge contracts to get you. But there hasn't been many GMs like that once they stop being a GM for another team, they resurface somewhere at that same position. Why is it like that with football? I don't know. But my point is here, just like anything, you got to give it time to work. I'm not saying you give the man 4 or 5 years, but I'm saying because these are the things that were coming out. when he became GM last year, I remember Jared saying, he's really not the GM. He's really not the GM. That guy is running. Vrabel's really running the run of the deal. He's really not GM. If indeed that is the case, and I was arguing like, man, he is the GM. That's his title. That's his role. But I got pushback. So now that I realized that I got that pushback, now I'm bringing it and I'm putting it right at your doorstep. Remember when you said the word was coming out, Rossini, oh, he really is not running anything. It's this guy. So you believe Diana then, but you don't want to believe us now. Like when I tell you, man, that was his first year. He really wasn't the GM. But then you tell me, yes, he was. Yes, he was. But then you tell me the same thing that Diana Rossini said. He really wasn't the person that was calling the shots. And Rand even came in and said, listen, I'm not stepping on anybody's toes. I came into the process sort of late in the draft, evaluating the draft. I'm just going to sit back and watch. Yeah, I'm going to have my hands in a few things. He didn't say it verbatim in those words, but he was basically like, I'm the new dude coming in. I'm not ruffling any feathers. They seem like they got something going here, whatever it is. I'm just going to sit back, watch, and evaluate. Well, then, obviously, it wasn't good enough for the owner, so she fired the head coach. And now it's your opportunity to show that you can put this team back on the right track. And this is the first year where he gets an opportunity and I said this when they fired Vrabel. I said, now the clock starts. You can go back through the tape and look. I said, now the clock starts on Ran Carthon. Because last year it was, he's really not the GM. That's the word that was coming out of the building. He likes to, and I remember Jared saying this, he likes to play GM, but he's really not the GM. So if you like to play, but really not, who's the GM? Maybe that's the Titans' fault for that. Because they should be at fault for a lot of things. Maybe that's ownership's fault. You need to define roles and let everybody know this is what the role is, not just inside the building, but outside the building. So when things like this happen, no one's looking around. Everybody knows exactly who to point their finger at or who to pat on the back. That's why I said, for Ran Carthon, it starts this year. You get that man 3 years. If he can't pull it together before they get into that stadium or as they're entering, because everything is geared toward that stadium. If you don't get it right by time we get into that stadium in the next year or two, then yes, we have to change GMs. But right now, no, let the man do the job that he's been hired to do.
So what you're saying
he is the GM.
So what you're saying is you should let Rand cook. Is that what you're saying?
I don't like the cooking thing. I would say let Rand do his job.
Let Rand bake.
I think, yeah.
If he is the GM, let him do his job.
I think the issue here, and I've heard Jared talk about this. You were just talking about this. I've heard it on other shows on our station. Is this Ran Carthon's first year really as general manager or second year as general manager? Because last year it was hazy as to who was in charge.
And whose fault is that?
That's the Titans' fault.
Exactly.
Who was calling the shots? How many times did we talk about, okay, well, who picks the players? And the Titans were unclear and were let's see the word I'm looking for here. It just wasn't, they were never upfront about this is the structure of our organization. They made that much more clear this time around as to here are the titles, here's who reports to who. Last year it was, well, is it Mike Vrabel pulling the strings or is it Ran Carthon pulling the strings? So I think the issue with this lies in, is it really Ran Carthon's first year or is it his second year? Now, Jared, again, say his name and he appears.
Jared. There it is.
He texts and says I'm assuming Rand, was the GM. Diana says Brinker calls the shots now. And I believe
it. My goodness. Seriously, Jared, you gonna say that now he's the GM? Yes, last year you were not saying that, Jared. You're saying he likes to play GM, but he's really not the GM. Those were words that were coming out of your mouth, not my mouth. What I was saying is he is the GM. But everybody was telling me, nah, he's really not the GM. He likes to he plays GM, but he's really not calling the shots. Vrabel's calling the shots. So again, if that is indeed your truth, and I'm throwing it back in your face, you can't tell me this is his second year then. I'm going by what y'all were saying, that he wasn't running the team, that he wasn't really the GM. But now all of a sudden, now that things have gone really south, oh, he's the GM now. He should be held accountable for last year and this year. If you want to, if that's what you want to believe or think, then okay, fine. But for me, what I want to tell fans out there is this: just like any other organization, you got to give it time to work. What who was on this morning with Robbie and Rex? Charles Robinson. Charles Robinson was right with what he said. He said, if they continue to change GMs over and over and over again, then you look like an inept, he didn't say it in those words, but you look like a dysfunctional organization. Give it time to work. See if it's going to work. It's been, to my estimation, calculation, it's been 1 year for Rand, because everybody was telling me he ain't running the team. They told me that last year. It was really Vrabel running the team. So if that was indeed the case, this is his first year for me. Let me see what he does this year and next year. Now, after that, we can start talking if things are not right. I'm not going to sit here and be beating on the drum for Rand if the job is not getting done. If it's not getting done, but I'm also not going to be unfair to him and say, well, you know what, after a year, even though they said you wasn't running the team last year, then I'm going to hold that against you last year, and I'm going to hold this against you last year. Now you need to be out. What organization does that? A dysfunctional organization. That's who does it. And I just hope the organization that I played for, that I spent time with, that I love, I'm hoping they're not a dysfunctional organization. And if you keep on going with this carousel of GMs, you are going to be a dysfunctional organization if people don't believe that already.
615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on this all show long on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Coming up next, our friend Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow. Unable to join us yesterday, but we want to hear what Hutton has to say about all of this, so he will join us next. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
Football season is back for another week. You got the Thursday night game tonight. So if you're going to do your betting, which I know you will, then you need to do it with our partners, Zen Sports, a new sports book in Tennessee that is bringing sports betting to a whole new level. And I mean that literally, people. When you sign up for Zen Sports, you'll automatically earn up to $100. No danger first wager. If you first bet loses, you'll be reimbursed for the amount of your bet up to $100. And now that football season has started, Zen Sports is launching a revamp, or they have launched a revamped betting platform for both college football and the NFL. And what's better, with their new look, Zen Sports will be offering daily promotions, including odd boosts, same game parlays, no danger wagers, and so much more. Zen Sports also offers a one-of-a-kind VIP program. If you qualify, you earn monthly comps at sporting events, concerts, and even sportsbook bonuses. The VIP program is by invite only, so if you feel that your Zen Sports play qualifies for the VIP consideration, check out the program details and apply at zensports.com/VIP. So what are you waiting for, football fans? Start betting with Zen Sports, where you will receive true odds on all parlays and an enhanced user experience for all. So get going and download their app at zensports.com today. That's Zen Sports, where betting just got better. And remember, gambling problems, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 years or older to bet here in Tennessee.
D-Mays, Finken, and Donick, 1025-1063 the game. Tomorrow, it's your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click. If you correctly guess a Preds player that scores a goal in the Predators game tomorrow night against the Blackhawks, you win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Preds home game. Be sure to participate with Robbie and Rexroad tomorrow morning at 8:45 as we await Jonathan Hutton. The trades that were reported yesterday have been made official. DeAndre Hopkins, officially a member of the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Titans have officially traded Ernest Jones to the Seattle Seahawks for Jerome Baker and a 4th-round pick, if I remember that correctly. Yes, a 4th-round pick, and it was a conditional 5th for DeAndre Hopkins, as was reported yesterday. Those conditions are that the Kansas City Chiefs qualify for the Super Bowl and DeAndre Hopkins plays 60% of the Chiefs' remaining snaps, which makes it, which the Chiefs getting to the Super Bowl, considering that they've done it many times, is not out of the realm of possibility. The 60% of the snaps seems like it would be unlikely.
Yeah, because listen, it wouldn't be, because I don't expect. Do Kansas City got to bye this week?
Kansas City plays the Raiders,
okay,
I want to say, on Sunday.
I can't expect, or nor should D-Hop really expect, for him to play, or if he does play many snaps, because of the obviously the playbook, him getting there sort of late in a week. And then, a lot of their stuff they do is timing. A lot of that, because they do a lot of motions and everything else. So that's probably a little bit more difficult. Like the little nuances of the play is a little bit difficult for you to probably pick up in 3 days, to go out there and play at a level that you feel comfortable with. You saw Amari Cooper last week. He still didn't look comfortable at what he was doing, and that's the reason why I think he dropped the first pass, because he's not comfortable. And he almost dropped a touchdown pass too, because he didn't know what to do. And then Keon Coleman told him what to do. And still in his mind, he's really unsure. So it takes you a couple weeks to get caught up with what's going on. So I don't expect him to play at all, much or at all, this game coming up. So that may cut down, the percentages he can play moving forward.
So the Chiefs are at the Raiders on Sunday. Diana Rossini of The Athletic tweeted yesterday, while the Titans and Chiefs continue to iron out the details of the trade, the Chiefs are expecting DeAndre Hopkins to land in Kansas City later today, meaning yesterday. And the hope is to get him ready to play on Sunday against the Raiders.
Yeah, that's the hope. But then actually putting him out here, because again, they don't, with Patrick Mahomes, you don't need him, meaning D-Hop right now, like this Sunday. You would like to have him this Sunday, but because you have a quarterback that, that can just run everything, you don't necessarily need him. You can work with what you got until D-Hop learns the offense enough where you can put him in there. He feels comfortable. It's not about you feeling comfortable. It's about him feeling comfortable in the offense that he's running. So if he does play, it may be 5, 10, maybe even 15 plays. But as they continue to go, they're going to get to that point. And that's one of the reasons why I think Pittsburgh chose to not continue to play Fields, because if they play him, they're going to have to pay him more. So they kind of pulled it back, like, let's see what Russ got. Let him play a little while and see what he got. And then if it's not working, we can go back to Justin Fields. That's why Tomlin never truly solidified Fields as the starting quarterback. He kept saying, hey, we got to wait until Russell gets back, and then we'll make our determination. But Russ is the guy moving forward. I think that would be the same thing with D-Hop. It's like, okay, we could put him in, but I'm not willing to just give up a 4th round pick. If I can control it, which they can, and they got a lot of people upstairs that are counting those snaps. If we can control it and keep it at 55% and him still be productive and we're still winning, we're going to do that. Why? Because we don't want to give up a 4th round pick.
So we're going to bring in Jonathan Hutton here from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow. And I want Hutton to be a part of this. We have Trey on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, with a comment on the Titans. Trey, go ahead.
Hey, how y'all doing today, guys?
Good, you?
Good.
Good. Hey, in my heart, okay, first she hired Rand, okay? Rand been around 2 years, and this is the result from him being in charge. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. They need him, Miss Amy, need to stay away from the field, let Brian do his thing, and create a balance, to where the teams, can at least get a few wins, and I believe in my heart he won't last to the end of the season. Maybe next season, but his lease is short. Y'all have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you for your
Thanks,
call.
Trey. And Hutton, Trey, I want to ask you the question that I asked on Jared versus Joe yesterday, because I would be curious for your take on this. So if the Titans were to continue to bottom out, as it appears they will, and they were to fire Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker at the end of the season, so let's just say 2 general managers in 3 seasons, what would that say about the Titans and specifically Amy Adams Strunk if that were to happen?
It would say that she is she means every word of her statement from last year, whatever she said, that she's unapologetically committed to winning. And you better come in here and flip this immediately, or playoffs or pink slips every year is what it would say. Look, what we've been witnessing over the first half of the season, we're not even there yet, is unacceptable. I mean, it is really, really bad. The part that I find just, maybe it's not maddening yet, it's going to be, is how many different scapegoats there seem to be forming here. First, it's we're trying to identify this quarterback. Then it's offensive line. Now it's whether or not the coach can call plays. Then it's is it ran in the off season? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. It's the collaboration. That was what everything was built on. And that would include Amy Adams-Strunk being involved in all this. They didn't make that trade yesterday, or those trades yesterday, without her knowing about it. So, look, I think it goes back to the offseason and the way that the expectations were formed. And it would say that they're about to run that back again, and the fans aren't going to buy it. That's would be my answer. It would say that she's going to try to, restart everything, and the fans are going to just kind of roll their eyes at it this time.
What do you think the DeAndre Hopkins trade tells us about the Titans' feelings on Will Levis?
I mean, it tells us that. Okay, here's what it tells me. It doesn't matter if DeAndre Hopkins was going to stick around here or not. It's not going to matter unless you're going to throw him the football. You're going to throw the wide receivers the football. They were dumbing it down, and I say dumbing it down. Mason and Adam, I think you know what I mean here. Like they were doing more with Will Levis in last year's offense, and all of a sudden the switch flipped at that Green Bay game. They lose to Malik Willis, and they come back with this conservative game plan where it didn't matter. Coach Callahan admitted it post game after Levis got hurt in Miami. It didn't matter who they played; they were just going to run the football. That's more or less what they're going to do the rest of the season, is just kind of run out the clock on the year. And so it tells us that their evaluation's done. Yeah, I mean, how can you evaluate a young quarterback and try to figure out if Levis is your guy if you're not even going to do the things that made Will Levis the type of quarterback worthy of such an opportunity in the first place? So if Hopkins were on this roster, I mean, he's doing more, like you were asking what he does in Kansas City, 15% of the snaps, whatever. I mean, that's more of a percentage than what he gave us in the fourth quarter last week. That's my thinking if I'm the Titans. So, yeah, I mean, it better off getting picks for a guy who's going to, not get the football as often as what he probably should when he's healthy. And that to me tells us everything we need to know about the quarterback. They know. We all know. I mean, What run is Levis going to show now that he wouldn't have already shown with the most reliable receiver that he's had on the roster and his go-to guy? That says it all right there.
Yeah, you're right. Hut, I mean, whatever he wasn't doing with D-Hop, it's going to be the same thing without him. I think last year was sort of that, right opportunity, right moment, where you throw Will Levis in and it's, throw all caution to the wind, just let him play. And I think sometimes it's like, maybe that was a detriment that, he had such a good game the first game of the year. I mean, first time he started, that people just all of a sudden now the expectation was through the roof because he threw for 3 or 4 touchdowns. Never mind, Atlanta was playing all man-to-man, and they didn't even try to disguise coverage. They just felt, hey, listen, we're gonna pressure the young quarterback, and he's gonna make a mistake. Well, he didn't, and he played a wonderful game. And then everybody took that game, including myself, and said, wow, they got something here. And then you try to do it again, and it's, oh boy, we don't have it. But then now they're stuck, Hut, in a sort of between a rock and a hard place, because if you go on with the guy, you're not going to get any better. But if you don't, then you got to admit right now that everybody was wrong about Will Levis and what he did last year.
Well, and not only that, Mace, that there are a lot of things wrong, not just Will Levis, that have carried over from last year to this year with the turnover on offense, with starters and much more, right? Like, I mean, the second half offense, the third down opportunities, the explosive plays, that's what this offense lacks. There is no explosive. There's no opportunity for explosive plays, and when they're there, things collapse so fast. It doesn't really matter if Levis is in or if Rudolph is in. Now, some of those things can be missed by the quarterback. Other can be dropped. There are a lot of different things that play a factor in all of this. But, I mean, right now the Titans are sitting at the NFL worst, 8.5 yards per completion. So going back to the overall thought about DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, again, Nick Westbrook-Akine can give you that. That's no knock on him. But if the same guy that can be 5 deep in your receiving core can give you what DeAndre Hopkins, what is your most tradable asset, can give you as a starter with an offensive-minded head coach and a quarterback that, when healthy, can sling it all over the field, that's what it's telling us. Is it doesn't matter who you have at receiver unless you're going to make that the focus of your offense. And right now, they're not going to do that. They're going to they're saying they want to run the football because it's all they can do. More power to them, but it's not like they're facing a bunch of stacked boxes, and they weren't able to do that in the second half either.
Now, Hut, should they? Because I threw this question out yesterday. We talked about it a bit yesterday. Should they now go from evaluating the quarterback, which, like you said, they got their evaluation. They may still throw him in there, but they understand what type of player he is, what he can and what he can't do. Is he a starter in this league? Probably not, but he's good enough to play in this league. But now that you've established that as an organization, now should they start to look at some of these other young guys at other positions and allowing them to play? They allowed the young guy Jackson to play a little bit last week. I saw him in there a few plays. Now his workload should really pick up. Guys like that.
Yes, they should. I agree with guys like Jaquan Jackson. Mace, they also, as a staff, they have to toe the line of doing that versus making sure that they don't get boat raced every week. It's not if you lose, it's how you lose at this point for them. You know what I mean? Yep. Like they cannot go from, okay, we've been bad, like really bad, but we're following the script here of whatever now they're on with, acquiring picks, and here we go, and we're still making it about Will and blah, 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 to then just getting, shellacked the way that we saw in the second half and the type of effort that we saw in the second half against Buffalo. That you can't throw in the towel at every single position for a roster that is not very good at only a very small handful of positions.
But
right
I bring that up, Hut, because I don't want them to go into what I call, sort of fooling us again season. You fooled us last year with the quarterback and said he's the guy, and from what we saw, it was like, okay, yeah, they may be right. So y'all fooled us once because we know he's not the guy now. I don't want you to fool us again and tell us, well, these young players that we have, it's their opportunity now. They're going to get the opportunity in 2025. So mark our words. These are some young guys that can really play. No, I want to see if they can play now. Like, you got 10 games left, over 10 games left. Put those young guys in and let them play. So when we go into the offseason, we know, okay, Jaquan Jackson, yes, he can play. This guy, yes, he can play. We're not relying solely on what you say. It's what we've seen.
Totally. Mace, I'm with you. But there's how many players are like that right now?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Jackson's a great example.
Three or four guys.
I mean, at this point, let's work him in there and let's see what, we've got. I don't care what young players roll through that turnstile at right tackle.
That's a lost cause, man.
Yeah. We're already seeing the young players play at corner. Like, so I don't, there's only one or two spots like that that we get that opportunity to see. Maybe, I don't know, is Gray going to be available anytime soon at linebacker? I mean, again, like, those are the spots I would look at. Other than that, they play their vets, play the guys that you pay to ride out the season, because look, the guys behind them are not good. This is still, and I mentioned this in the preseason, I harped on it. It's not a team that's NFL quality in depth. But what they said in the offseason, what I know Carthon said on NFL Sirius XM, that Jared plays often and rightfully so, where they check all the boxes. What they were telling us was they're much better than anything close to how at the very bottom this season has been versus expectations from just the starting lineup perspective. And unless they figure out what the problems are at quarterback this offseason, it's really not going to matter next year either. We would sit here and have the same conversation next October. They have to solve that. They have to figure out the quarterback that can come in and allow them to run this offense. If they're running it back with president, GM, head coach, they have to figure out why a team like Detroit has outrushed their opponents by 63 yards, which is second behind Baltimore, and that they run the ball with running backs more than any team in the NFL. And then all of a sudden, the Titans compared to Detroit, they want to throw the football over the place. And now all of a sudden they're talking about running the football and running it well when they really haven't done that, especially in the second half. In the second half, the Lions have been the second. They are the best second half first down offense in the league. The Titans have the fourth worst. And this is supposed to be an offensive team built around quarterback, head coach / offensive play caller. Like that's now it's turn around and hand off. And that's just simply that's not going to get it done with anybody you're trying to evaluate. I don't care what position they're playing.
Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow joining us a day late, but still wonderful insight from Jonathan Hutton. We'll talk next week.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the accommodations today, because yesterday was some meetings that ran long, and it was one of those with Fox I could not get out of. So
we've all been
much
there.
rather be joining you guys. Trust me.
We've all been stuck in meetings that we don't want to be a part of. We completely
How
understand.
about yesterday, though, with the trades? That was quite the newsworthy show.
Yeah,
You
it
guys,
was.
I was listening to you guys.
It was. So, hey, better late than never, Hut. So,
Hey, thank you as always. I really appreciate it. I always enjoy this.
absolutely.
All right, Hutton. Thank you. Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow joining us as he does every week. Before we get to silly underdog picks at noon, I saw some interesting details from the behind the scenes of the DeAndre Hopkins trade from a notable NFL insider. I'll share that with you guys next. Derek Mason and Adam Vingan, 102.5-106.3 The Game.
Don't tell me to chill out.
D-Mace, Vingen and Donick, 1025, 1063. The game Silly Underdog Picks is coming up next. I believe our people's representative won last week. He picked Tennessee to beat Alabama.
Yeah, he did win.
I
Yep.
believe his name was Craig.
Yes, Craig.
Craig received a pair of tickets to see Gary Clark Jr. at the Ryman, and that could be you. So we will need a people's representative for Silly Underdog Picks coming up next. But before we get there, I stumbled across this information from Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated. He did a mailbag on SI.com about the trade deadline and things of that nature. And he answered a question about DeAndre Hopkins joining the Chiefs. And he had some interesting information as relates to the Chiefs and, of course, the Titans. Albert Breer writes, quote, the Chiefs didn't want to give up a top 100 pick in a trade for a receiver. Given where Kansas City is with a top-heavy cap, including big deals for Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones, those picks are very valuable in filling out the roster. That plus the fact that the Las Vegas Raiders are in the division made Devontae Adams a bit unrealistic. Amari Cooper went for more than a top 100 pick, too. Kansas City needed a team to work with it on money, too, with less than $5 million in cap space. Could they mortgage some things? Sure, but staying loose was the prudent move with contracts for guys such as Trent McDuffie, Nick Bolton, and Trey Smith sitting out there as issues to address after the season. So in the end, Hopkins, a guy with red zone value and inside-out versatility to make up for the loss of Juju Smith-Schuster for now and play with him later, wound up making the most sense. Now we get to see how much he truly has left. But according to Albert Breer, the Chiefs did not want to give up a top 100 pick in a trade for a receiver. Because I did see some of this on the text line yesterday about whether or not the Titans got enough value for DeAndre Hopkins, because there are other wide receiver needy teams. Tampa Bay has an opening now because Chris Godwin is done. I believe Mike Evans will return, but he may be out for a week or two, if I'm not mistaken. Brandon Ayuk is out in San Francisco for the season. Deebo Samuel's timeline is unknown because of the pneumonia, the illness he's been dealing with. So there were multiple teams that needed receivers. I guess you could say before the Bills traded for Amari Cooper, they needed a receiver. So I did see a lot of that about how maybe did the Titans get enough from Kansas City, or should they have tried to get more out of another team? But according to Albert Breer, the Chiefs did not want to give up a top 100 pick in a trade for a receiver.
I think they got more than what I think anybody would have expected.
The Titans.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The Titans got back more than what I think anybody would have expected. Everything sort of, it sort of was a perfect storm for the Titans in a sense, because you started having all these receivers go down, and then Amari and Adams, they get traded. So you take the top two guys in the pecking order, they're gone. They're on what they believe are Super Bowl caliber teams. Devontae, at least playoff caliber teams. Let's say that. Devontae with the Jets, we know what's going on there. And then obviously Amari Cooper with the Buffalo Bills, they still got high hopes they can make it to the Super Bowl. So considering, what was out there, I think they got more than what many people expected. A fifth that can turn into a fourth for a receiver that is aging. And can he still play? Yeah, he can still play, but he's lost a lot of what he truly was early on in his career. And that's expected. That's to be expected.
Carl is on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Carl.
Hey, guys. I enjoy your show. I don't have a lot of sports business and analysts, but I did have an organization that I hired over 3,000 people. I wanted to keep my best employees for however long. I went over to North Carolina, this past week, did an Ironman, and picked up Sports Talk Radio. One of the guys on the show said, Grant Carthon was a running back in the NFL. How could he let Derrick Henry go? I know about the line and everything. But Derrick, I'll be honest with you, I loved you as a player. You had my son take a picture with him when he was a little kid, and I'll continue listening. But your comment yesterday, Yeah, let's let Denard Hopkins go. Let's let him win. Go somewhere where he can win and get a championship. Guys, I'm not worried about 2040. I'm worried about winning right now. I do support the team. The New York Yankees, who did they acquire this past few months? Jazz Chisholm, and I know it's different on the salary cap and everything. Carlos Stanton and Juan Soto. Derek, where are they playing tomorrow night?
They're in the World Series.
That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my comments, guys. I have a hard time, and like I said, I don't have the business sense, maybe Derek, that you do, but I'm interested in winning now, not down the road. Anyway, that's my comments, guys. I enjoy your show, and I'm back listening today.
Thank you,
Thank
Carl.
you,
We
Carl.
appreciate
Quickly,
it.
Derek, any response to that?
And I understand what Carl is saying. I want to win now too, and that's the goal. So he's not wrong with saying that. And I'm sure there are, thousands upon thousands of Tennessee Titans fans that sort of echoes the same sentiment that Carl does. But here's the problem: we knew this team wasn't going nowhere after 6 games. We know that this team is headed to having a top 10 pick, regardless if D Hop was here or not. And here's the thing with D Hop. He was on an expiring contract. And I can't see if I don't know if they would have re-signed him, which if I had money to put on it,
I doubt
they wouldn't have re-signed him.
And he probably wouldn't
Exactly.
have wanted
He
to been
would
here.
And so when I say, just do what's best for the player, because you tried to do what's best for the organization. You held on as long as you possibly could, but then now you're at a point, it's like, listen, we just got to make some changes. We got to set ourselves up moving forward. Now, if we could still win games, that's great, but I'm trying to build this roster back up. How do we do that? Well, we try to accumulate draft picks. Well, how can we do that when we're not winning? We don't have many people to trade. Well, you trade one of your best assets that's not a young guy. And D Hop was their best asset to get back something. Now you give D Hop an opportunity to go play for a winning team, because as much as we want the Titans to be a winning team, right now they are not a winning team, and it doesn't look like in the foreseeable future, at least this season, they are going to be a winning team. But I agree with Carl, like, listen, you just want to win. I want to win, but I'm not sure if they would have won with D-Hop.
615-737-1025. It is time for Silly Underdog Picks. If you want to participate, keep it locked in here. We will let you know when to call and be the people's representative. 615-737-1025. Derek Mason and Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game.
Mark your calendars, people. November 9th, the Iron Goddess all-female show is coming to Nashville, which is sponsored by our friends, Law Tigers. November 9th, meet us at the fairground as female riders from all over the world will be in attendance, okay? Come out and see some of the beautiful custom bikes, from choppers to mini bikes, from cruisers to sports bikes. All makes and models are encouraged to come. Get your tickets now at IronGoddessMotorcycleShow.com, which is sponsored by Law Tiger. Law Tigers, enjoy a day of live music, Vendors Village, tasty food, and so much more. Show off your bike in one of their many competitions and win cash prizes. All spectators are welcome, and kids under 16 are free with paid tickets. So go to the website, IronGoddessMotorcycleShow.com. Get your tickets November 9th, which is sponsored by Law Tigers. Can't wait to see you there.
There's no need to fear. Underdog is here.
D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063. The game. It's Thursday. It's noon. It's time for Silly Underdog Picks presented by Volunteer Hose and Gasket. I now turn over the floor. Well, I can't really turn over the floor. I turn the floor over, whatever. It's a saying. To the commissioner, Willie D.
Willie, oh Willie G, Willie G. Ooh, Willie.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Silly Underdog Picks 2024, presented by Volunteer Hose and Gasket, a competition that dates back to 1994, which makes this the
Pearl anniversary.
It does, and it continues on after 8 weeks of the competition. It continues to be a 4-horse race. All 4 contestants in the competition, still in the hunt for the championship.
Good.
The defending champion, Derek Mason, and Adam Vingan, the rookie, at 13.5 points. Chase McCabe in second place with 22.5. The suit
Who's winning?
who was on the line with us. And the leader in the
Who's winning?
competition, the forever Titan, Chris Sanders, the Buckeye, the Ohio State.
I believe that we just win. I believe that we gonna win. That's exactly what's gonna happen.
But he has been resting on the laurels for a while now. He had a big lead, and people are cutting into it. But, Chris, how are you over there at Montgomery Bell Academy?
Man, I'm doing. Feels good to be on top of the winning list. It just really, really feels good. So I'm very, very excited.
And do we have the suit with us?
I'm here.
It's the beginning of a long day of broadcasting
just
for
woke
both
up.
you and I, Chase. People listening to this radio station are going to be very familiar with us between now and 6 o'clock because we're going to dominate
They are.
the airwaves.
Yeah.
Chase showing his face on this program, on this competition for the first time in like 3 weeks.
Hey, Adam, I'm a busy man, okay? Like, I got stuff going on. I got to make appearances and shake hands and kiss babies.
Yeah, you
Like,
gotta do
I'm
it
like a
all, man.
politician, okay?
You got to do it all.
Exactly.
I just thought it was because you're on a bit of a losing streak right now. That's why I thought you
That's
were.
it. That's it.
Oh man!
After such a
hold
hot
on.
start.
I would
Hold
like
on.
to. I
All
would
of
like
us
to
are on
formally
a losing
announce
streak.
But
I'd
who's
like to
winning?
announce we have a new opening on the midday show.
Hey, listen, we're all on losing streaks here. Okay.
Yeah, that's
Not the
Nobody's winning.
people, not
yeah,
the people.
won. Yeah, you're right.
And
about
Willie, why don't we recap last week's selections?
Yes, let's do. Good lead in there, Adam. Let's look at the results from week 8. A shout out to the people. No question about it. Craig, represented by taking the Volunteers of Tennessee, a 3-point dog against Bama. And indeed, the Big Orange pulled it off, 24-17. Huge win for their playoff hopes and a big win for the people. And Craig, that will get Craig the tickets to a concert. I believe it was the concert at the Ryman.
It was Gary
coming
Clark
up here.
Jr.
Well-
at the Ryman in March.
Yes.
Nice.
So, Craig, congratulations. You're off to the Ryman, my friend.
Yes, well done, Craig. And there will be another representative of the people in the next segment. So if you want to jump in and be the early bird, 617, excuse me, we're not calling Boston, 615-737-1025.
What's
Yeah.
going on?
The
To be
competition
fair,
is not going
it's
via
not-
Boston.
To be fair, it's not the worst slip up Willie has had this week. You referred to me as
It's
Jared a
that.
couple of
Yes,
days ago.
absolutely.
This is really scary stuff this week. I might have to get my head examined. But let's take a look at the standings or the results from week 8. Derek Mason had the first pick. D. Mace at 13.5. He went to his beloved Big Ten.
Get him out.
Selected the Cornhuskers of Nebraska, who were not in the Big Ten when D. Mace was playing for the Michigan State Spartans, although he did have a tough experience against the Cornhuskers back in the day.
Yeah, 2 of them.
When 2 of them,
Yeah.
when that was prime mid-90s Nebraska when they were a powerhouse, and they had their way with Derek's Spartans, unfortunately. But it was not the case for this version of Nebraska on Saturday. They 6.5-point dog at undefeated Indiana. And Indiana thumped Nebraska 56-7. D-Mace, what happened?
Nothing. That's what happened. What happened is Nebraska forgot to show up. That's what happened. God.
Where was touchdown Tommy Frazier?
still in the end zone from 1980 by himself. That's where he was, alone.
Yeah, they could use a few of those guys from the Tom Osborne days there. So D-Mace drops to 1-6. He stays at 13.5. Chris Sanders also went back to the Big Ten and selected Purdue.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
A home dog with the #1 Oregon Ducks. He thought the pressure might get to the Ducks, and Purdue would show him what life is like in the Big Ten. And Purdue, unfortunately, as a 28-point dog, was a very, very nice host for Oregon. Oregon came in and had a nice ride through Indiana, West Lafayette, and won 35-0 against the Boilermakers.
Hey, as long as they gave it their all. Oh, thanks.
You're still in the lead.
Chris is getting too cocky. He had a good opening week, and now he's just throwing 28-point underdogs out there. Pride cometh before the fall, Chris.
It's coming, buddy.
Yes, Chris.
That brings us to the suit. Chase McCabe, who for 2 straight weeks, as Adam alluded to, has taken a vacation for the competition and delegated the deputy, Nick Frazier, to make the pick. And Nick went with Arizona State in this brand new Big 12 rivalry. Arizona State, a 5-point dog, traveling across the country to Cincinnati to take on the Bearcats. Cincinnati gets the win 24-14, so no points for the suit. The interesting note about that game is their coach absolutely threw his kicker under the bus after the game individually and had to apologize for it. He missed 2 field goals in the second half as Arizona State was trying to come back, and he basically said, we're going to have tryouts. He said, I'm giving out my email. Anybody on the campus of Arizona State that can kick, I would like you to show up because we're going to have tryouts. We need somebody who can kick it through the uprights. Real classy.
You know what? He shouldn't have had to apologize. Like we see we see this too much in college football and even the NFL. Kickers, you got one job, just kick it.
You seem very bitter.
I'm okay with it.
Very bitter.
Yeah. Now he knows the feeling I have when it comes to kickers.
I was about to say you know him better than anybody. You haven't spoken to Al Del Greco in 20 years.
I love Al, even though
So Chase drops to 3-5, and he stays at 22.5. That brings us to Adam Vingan, the rookie, trying to build off of his win with Vanderbilt the week before to get him on the board. He went Coastal Carolina out of the Sun Belt. The Chanticleers, a 4.5-point dog at home against Louisiana. It seemed like a sensible pick. It was a good game, but Louisiana wins it 34-24. So Adam falls to 1-7 on the season and stays at 13.5.
I was made, by the way, I just want to say, I was told that the Chanticleers were proud and fierce roosters. What a bunch of baloney that was. What a bunch of beep, rooster bleep that was.
Rooster.
Yeah.
A Chanticleer is allegedly a proud and fierce rooster, but that they were anything but against Louisiana the other day.
Not fierce enough, apparently. Not fierce enough.
Heck to the no.
So we move on to week number 9. The standings remain the same. And leading off the picks in week number 9 will be the leader.
Let's go.
Right now, it would be the one and only Buckeye himself, scarlet and gray clad, Chris Sanders.
There you go. Let's eat. Go ahead, D-Mace.
Haven't we told you no? I don't care. Who cares what you do? I hope you are. Who cares? Chris.
Okay. All right, here we go. This is going to take me to the bank right here. This is what's going to put me over the edge, and this is what's going to seal the stinking deal right now.
You're picking Vanderbilt over Texas.
No, close.
Which I would love that pick.
I was going to, but Texas going to beat the brakes off them. I'm going with Ball State over Northern Illinois.
Some action.
Plus 17.
Action. Okay.
Plus 17.
Well, I just had a firsthand account of Ball State. They came into Nashville and played pretty tough against Vanderbilt.
See?
Ball State is a 13-point dog against Northern Illinois, who knocked off, famously, Notre Dame earlier in the season. So an interesting matchup in the MAC. That is Saturday at 2:30 on ESPN Plus. I'm sure Chris will be tuning into that one with the Ball State Cardinals. Will you be calling Blaine Bishop for a pep talk for that game? The Ball State alum.
No, he might yell at me. No.
But you're picking his team. He's got to be happy.
No, man.
He's going to be on your side. You guys can root for him together.
Yeah, but he still might yell at me. I mean, he still might. You got to ease into him.
He is a pretty fiery guy. He's a fiery guy.
But a great guy. Great guy. Awesome.
So Chris picks Ball State. That brings us to the suit. Chase McCabe making the pick in person for the first time in weeks. Let's see what he's got.
Behold the King, the King of Kings. On your knees, dog.
Hey, Willie.
Yes, Chase.
I got 2 words for you. Anchor down.
Oh my God.
I'm doing it.
He's a believer.
Give me Vanderbilt.
Can't do it.
He's a believer.
I'm a believer. Let's do it. Clark, if you're listening, I'm with you, baby. Let's go.
Vanderbilt is a 19-point dog playing at home, ranked 25th in the country.
Let's go.
As they take on number 5 Texas, coming off of a tough loss at home against Georgia. And they surrendered their number 1 ranking. So Texas will not be happy. Big test for the Doors. Can they do it again? They've already won 3 times as a double-digit dog. This would be unbelievable if they pull this off. Wow.
Absolutely.
All right. So Chase is a believer. And Chris passed on him, which he did against Alabama as well.
By the way, there's only 3 teams that are 3-0 or better against the spread as an underdog this year. Vandy is 4-0 as an underdog. So just keep that in mind.
Okay, that's cool.
No points for a cover. No points for a cover, but they have 3 wins as a dog.
Hey,
All right.
Chase, if they win, a drink is on me.
Okay, let's do it.
Oh, you'll get plenty of free drinks if that happens, Chase. They're coming from my way too. All right, let's go to Adam Vingan, who is right now at 1-7. He got a win with the Commodores 2 weeks ago. Let's see what he's got up his sleeve.
All right, as Willie said, I did get on the board a couple of weeks ago, picking Vanderbilt against Kentucky. And now I'm going to try to make my move. Try to get up the standings here. I'm going to MetLife Stadium, East Rutherford, New Jersey.
Picking the Jets?
No. I am not taking the Jets.
Rutgers?
But I am taking the Navy midshipmen against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I have Notre Dame here, minus 13.5. I will take Navy, the undefeated Navy midshipmen at 6-0, defeating Notre Dame at MetLife Stadium on Saturday.
Officially on CBS Sports, Navy, 6-0, ranked 24th, is a 12.5-point home dog, even though it is in East Rutherford, so it's not their home stadium. It's more of a neutral site, but they are the home team. They're a 12.5-point dog against Notre Dame, who has not lost since dropping the contest to the Huskies of Northern Illinois a few weeks ago. So Notre Dame still in the playoff chase, but this is a big one for the Fighting Irish. So this is intriguing. Let's see if Navy is for real. Wouldn't that be something?
Before we get to our final pick on our text line, Chase, Byron says that's brave or stupid, Suit. You picking Vanderbilt to beat Texas.
There's a little bit of picking with one's heart here, and sometimes that's dangerous. But you know what? I'm a believer.
All right, so I'm taking Navy. I believe in the midshipmen.
Derek Mason has the final pick of week number 9.
On the bench of the Red Cedar is the school that's known to all. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. It is Michigan State week. That's what I'm talking about. I am hyped, baby. Let's go. Yes, my Spartans. Yes, I finally get to pick them this week, and I won't feel bad. We'll watch it again. We gonna whoop some Wolverines up and down the field this Saturday in their house, not my house, in their house, the small house. I'm not calling it the other word. It's the small house. All right. My Spartans are 5.5-point dogs in this game, and I'm taking them. Let's go, Spartans. That freshman up there, that got Marsh. Woo, woo. He's in a long line of great receivers that came out of that building. That kid can show enough play. My Spartans will dominate the Wolverines this weekend. Chalk it right now. Put it in ink. My Spartans. Let's go.
Go Sparties.
Let's go.
Oh,
We need to somehow get this audio up to East Lansing.
Can't wait. Like Bart Scott said, can't wait.
Is Connor Stallions available?
No, he's at my alma mater high school, and they're losing. Damn it. Go
Michigan
hire a
State.
Spartan, not a Wolverine to run your team.
Michigan State at 4-3 is taking on Michigan up in Ann Arbor. Michigan State coming off a big win Saturday against Iowa, 32-30. And now can they pull off a win against their arch rival? Michigan has been stumbling a little bit. They're also 4-3. So the Spartans, a 5.5-point dog on the road. All right, let's recap the picks from week number 9 to the Silly Underdog competition presented by Volunteer Hose and Gasket. The leader, Chris Sanders, has the first pick this week. Doesn't go deep. Actually goes with something a little more reasonable, but still a double-digit dog. The Ball State Cardinals, alma mater of his teammate back in the day for the Titans, Blaine Bishop. Ball State, a 13-point home dog after their loss at Vanderbilt. And another local tie, Ball State, coached by Mike New, a former quarterback of Arena Football's legendary Nashville Cats back in the day. So Ball State, 13-point dogs against NIU, Northern Illinois. Chase, picking with his heart, goes with the Commodores. Vanderbilt, a 19-point home dog, ranked 25th, taking on number 5, Texas. Can they do it again? We shall see. Adam Vingan at 13.5 points. The leader, Chris, has 25. Adam goes to the Naval Academy. The midshipmen, 12.5-point dogs, playing in the Meadowlands against Notre Dame, number 12 in the country. Traditional rivalry going back to the days of Roger Staubach and company. Derek Mason with the final pick goes close to home. Takes his alma mater, the Michigan State Spartans. A passionate pick. A 5.5-point dog on the road against arch rival, the Michigan Wolverines. The people will pick next. Remember, jump in right now on the phone, 615-737-1025, if you want to make a pick for the people. And Adam, what will they win if they get a victory?
We already do have a participant, our
very
friend
nice.
Mark in Nashville. We'll get to him next. And if Mark is correct, he will win a pair of tickets to see Daryl Hall at the Ryman on Tuesday, November 19th. Daryl Hall at the Ryman on Tuesday, November 19th. And we'll get Mark's pick on the other side. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063. The game.
Let's go, Spartans!
Good luck, everybody. Yeah. No, I got to drive all the way out to Hendersonville, so I'm gonna have to miss Elliot. So I'm gonna sign off here and circle back with you guys. Okay, cool.
D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. As we've received many texts on our text lines, I guess Willie wasn't muted at the end of that segment. So now you know why he's going down to Hendersonville. And the reason why Willie is going down to Hendersonville is to join Chase McCabe, filling in for Jared. And you can hear them and see them at Pellet Windows and Doors, their showroom grand opening at 256 East Main Street in Hendersonville. Discover premium windows and doors, enjoy food and drinks, and see how Pellet can transform your home. As I just said, Chase and Willie will be broadcasting live on location, and there will be some raffle prizes given away, including Preds tickets, RTIC coolers, and more. Our people's representative, Mark in Nashville, is on the phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Mark, welcome to the competition. What game are you selecting this week?
All right, how you doing, Adam? What's up, D-Mace, Willie?
Hey, what's going
We're
on?
good, Mark.
Hey, Adam, that was a great pick. You took my pick, Adam.
Sorry
By the
about
way,
that, my
I
friend.
was going to take Nate. Oh, that's all right, Adam. I want to see you get on the board, man. Some of these other guys picking some of these games, like Chris Sanders. Is it me you looking for? Adam, he'd have been better off picking Purdue over Oregon last week. Man, he'd been better off picking Sweetwater State over Penitentiary Community College before he did that, man.
Chris got on the board
Sanders.
early. Chris got on the board early, Mark. He picked Vanderbilt to beat Virginia Tech in the opening week. And then he was he's been feeling himself ever since, making these boneheaded picks.
Yeah. And then Chase, he gonna take Vanderbilt. Hey, man, I love Vanderbilt. They done well this year. But Chase better be on that boat that's going back out to the Cumberland River and get them goalposts down under that water and bring it back to Vanderbilt by the time Texas is done with them. You're going to be facing an angry squad, man. That's not a good pick, Chase. But I think, Adam, I'm going to go with I didn't hear nobody Texas picking. I think Texas A&M is an underdog in this game against LSU. I'm taking Texas A&M in an upset.
All right.
LSU.
Texas A&M against LSU.
Let's see.
It's actually listed here, Mark.
Yeah,
And
Texas A&M is the favorite.
Texas is the favorite in this game.
Yeah.
You could take LSU if you'd like.
I'm taking that. Okay, I'm going to take LSU then in an upset then over yeah.
A&M?
I guess I got caught up in is it me you're looking for? I get tired of hearing all that, man.
Thank you.
What a theme song. But hey, y'all have a good day, Adam. Y'all have a good weekend.
All right,
All right,
Mark.
you do the same.
Appreciate it. So,
All right,
Mark,
peace, D-Mace.
Yep.
Mark selects LSU, although they are ranked 8th and Texas A&M is 14th. LSU is a 2.5-point dog on the road at Texas A&M in College Station on Saturday night. So I will make sure to get that pick to the commissioner. Mark chooses LSU against Texas A&M. And if Mark wins, he will get a pair of tickets to see Daryl Hall at the Ryman. I have to just make sure I give the right date here. Yes, on November 19th. So, Mark, if you win, you'll see Daryl Hall at the Ryman on Tuesday, November 19th. Good luck to all of you. So, we received a text earlier in the show from Alex in Montreal. And by the way, thank you for listening to us in Montreal. Alex. Beautiful place, Montreal. This is something that we were planning on talking about anyway, Derek, but I'm glad that Alex brought it up because I think it's a good way to get into this. Alex writes, quote, I think the Titans have a huge communication problem, hence why we get hot takes from fans and people like Jared. We don't know what direction they're going. We never get the GM talking, the owner talking. Someone needs to come on and say, okay, this is what is happening. So it brought up a conversation that we were planning on having anyway. And we touched on it even a little bit yesterday when we were talking about the trades the Titans were making, sending off DeAndre Hopkins and Ernest Jones. And Willie said, I'm sure Rand Carthon is going to hold a news conference at some point. And I said, really? Are you sure? Jared has even laid down the gauntlet and said he is willing to bet $500 against Willie if Rand Carthon holds a news conference. Now I have to make sure it's about these specific trades or in general, but the gauntlet has been thrown down by Jared based off of what Willie said yesterday. So it brings me to the conversation about Rand Carthon and his inavailability to reporters. And I do think that the Titans have a communication problem. We talked at the beginning of the show about last season. It was unclear who was really in charge. Was it Mike Vrabel? Was it Ran Carthon? Were they collaborating? Who had the final say? I heard final say so many times on this station last season. It drove me bananas. But that was a question that we all had. Who is in charge here? And that question is still kind of hovering around this with Ran Carthon and Chad Brinker. But it got me thinking, and I even heard Paul Kaharski and Robbie and Rexroad talk about this the other day. So I looked up the media access policy from the Professional Football Writers of America, which is sort of a union that represents reporters who cover the NFL. And there is a section about general managers and secondary football executives. And this is what the policy says, quote, through the club communications department and in response to the intense public interest in roster construction and development, club general managers and secondary football executives must each be available to the media at least twice on a yearly basis. Once from the scouting combine through the week following the NFL draft. So they have to be available once in that stretch. And a second time either during training camp or following the final roster reductions to 53 players. As per the anti-tampering policy, a secondary football executive refers to an individual who has the title of assistant general manager and or is next in line to the primary football executive, supervising the player personnel department, including college and pro scouting departments. So according to these guidelines from the Pro Football Writers Association of America, or just the Pro Football Writers of America, which this is done in conjunction with the NFL, if I'm not mistaken, GMs are only required to be available to reporters twice a season. Now, usually general managers will address reporters at the end of a season. But I do think Ran Carthon in particular has done himself a disservice by not being more available to reporters. And Jared said this earlier about Brian Callahan, and I agree. And the same thing can be applied to Ran Carthon. Brian Callahan and Ran Carthon are not holding news conferences for us, meaning me, Derek, Willie, Jared, Robbie, Joe, the reporters who cover the team. It's their job to disseminate that information and write about it and talk about it. But Ran Carthon, Brian Callahan, they're holding news conferences for you, the fans. And it's our job as reporters and personalities to discuss those moves and ask the questions, sort of serving as conduits between the fans and the team. So I think the fact that Ran Carthon, I don't remember. I assume the last time he spoke was, I know the last time he spoke, it was near the end of training camp when he was required to talk about the roster being cut down to 53 men. It would be, I would implore Ran Carthon to do an interview. And let me be clear. Do not do an interview with a Titans employee. Because as we know, in those situations, the questions may not be as pointed as it would be if, a independent reporter were asking those questions. I think it is important, especially if the season continues to go the way it's going, that Ran Carthon must address the public about it. Now, the two moves that the Titans made yesterday are now official. DeAndre Hopkins and Ernest Jones are officially no longer members of the Tennessee Titans. The NFL trade deadline is still a week and a half away. I anticipate the Titans are going to make more trades between now and the trade deadline. So I think the first time that Ran Carthon should speak, or the next time Ran Carthon should speak, is at the end of the NFL trade deadline. When the moves are made, they're all official. The deadline has passed. He can't do anything else with the roster as it relates to player movement in that regard. He needs to talk about it. I think he is doing himself a great disservice by not being, I'm not saying you need to, look, Barry Trotz comes on our station every Tuesday. And Derek, you texted us during Barry's interview with Jared on Tuesday, and you were loving what Barry Trotz was saying. You loved how honest he was and how, he was talking about how the 0-5 start for the Predators, he was losing sleep over it. And he was telling some hard truths about his team. Barry Trotz is an anomaly. We knew that as a coach too. He is, that's what makes him so great to work with, is he tells it like it is. He's, and he's available. And he told Jared, when he was on this show, when he did interviews with other reporters, he was clear about what the Predators' expectations were and what to expect last season, just as he has done this season. But I think him being so forthcoming last season, when the Predators got off to a rough start, they ultimately did turn their season around. But when they got off to a rough start, fans knew what the expectations were from the team. That's important. Speaking from my own experience, David Poile was accessible. Whenever I needed to talk to David Poile, more often than not, he would speak to me. Now, he was more guarded than Barry Trotz, so I may not always get the answer I was looking for from David Poile, but David Poile was available. Yes. If something was going on, he was available. He would call you, or he would hold a news conference, but he was available. Ran Carthon lurking in the shadows has not helped the Titans one bit while this has been going on. So I think it is a necessity that he gets up in front of cameras. I would say as soon as the NFL trade deadline is over, that day when the deadline passes, he needs to be in front of cameras.
Yeah, and listen, I don't disagree with you at all in that regards. I think the organization owes it to their fans, because you're making moves that suggest that you are a rebuilding ball club, even though that's not the message you sent at the beginning of the season. I understand why you didn't send that message. Maybe you should have, but that's, that milk is out of the carton. You can't put it back in. Okay. Or that toothpaste is out of the tube. You can't put it back in. So I understand why he did it, but I think in this situation, considering all that has happened, considering where your team sits, and considering people, your fan base is looking at it, and some fan base, the more and more they watch, the more and more they listen, they're losing hope. Even those that believe in the process, they're losing hope, because you lose hope when you don't hear from the person that you've put the trust in. If you don't hear from them and things are sort of going, it doesn't seem to go well. That's just like a financial advisor. If you get your statements every 3 months or every quarter, however many times you get your statement, and you see each and every statement that, okay, yeah, I'm losing a little money here, losing a little money there, but you are not reaching out to your financial advisor, or your financial advisor isn't reaching out to you to sort of express what's going on or tell you what's really going on, you start to lose faith in them in regards to what they're doing. Why? Because you're not hearing from them, or if you're calling them or reaching out, they're not responding in a timely fashion. So you start to lose hope. Like, man, should I get another financial advisor here? Because I don't know really what's going on. I see it, but I want to know what's really going on. That's what's going on over at the Titans facility. The fans see it. They see the debacle. They see the team that is bad. Now they want to hear from the person that they deem in charge of it. So I think he will do himself a favor by speaking to not me, like you said, Adam, not me, not you, not Jared, not anybody else, but the fan base that you're asking money from as you're building this brand new, beautiful stadium. You owe it to them. Now, whether they like what you say or not, that's up to them. But at least you've given them the opportunity to make a determination of, okay, I like what he's saying. Okay, I feel a little bit better now hearing from the GM, as opposed to things going wrong and I don't hear from him. Now I'm feeling really bad. Like, what's really going on? That's why you're sort of, who's running the ship here? Who's doing this? Who has the role of GM? Who doesn't? I'm gonna tell you what has been relayed to me. Rand is the GM. Rand takes care of the roster. Hear me again. Rand is the GM. He takes care of the roster, moves that are made, guys in and out. Brinker is the day-to-day stuff, everything else, the analytics, all that other stuff, not the roster. Brinker has no control over the roster. They don't report to one another. They report to Amy. Brinker report to Amy what he's doing in regards to the organization, and Rand reports to Amy in regards of the roster, the team. So there's two different people running two different things, but they both report to Amy. They don't report to one another. So Brinker's not control. He doesn't control the roster, and Rand doesn't control the analytics and everything else. Rand is in control of the roster. Okay, I am telling you what's been told to me, and I'm sure other people. It's been told to other people too. Now, whether they choose to believe it or not, it's up to them. But if that's what you're telling me because they told you that, then I have no reason but to believe you. So Rand, he needs to do himself a favor. I'm not asking him to talk today, but before the trade deadline is over with, or the day of the trade deadline being over, he needs to speak to the fans, not me. He needs to speak to the fans that they are asking a whole bunch of money for this new stadium. I do agree with everybody when it comes to that. Rand does need to speak. Now, whether he does it or not, that's up to them. But they got to understand that if they don't, where Titans fans is going to be, they're gonna continue to believe what is being said about them. Why? Because they're not hearing from them. They're human. If they listen to our show or Jared's show or the morning show or Rex and Robbie or Big Joe and Chase, and all we're saying is, they need to change the GM because they don't, then that's what they're going to believe. Why? Because the GM is not talking.
615-737-1025. We'll continue this conversation next. I'd be curious to know from Titans fans listening what you would want to hear from Rand Carthon, and be realistic. Don't puff out your chest and be a tough guy. If you had the opportunity to ask Rand Carthon a question, or what kind of questions you would want Rand Carthon to answer from the reporters who cover the team regularly, let us know. 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game. Join Jared Stillman, Chris Sanders, and Derek Mason at Twin Peaks in Madison this Sunday for the pregame show. From 9:30 to 11:30, they will break down the Titans' Week 8 matchup against the Lions and give you the latest updates before the game. The pregame show is presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment, Sundeck Nashville, Sloan's Motorcycle ATV, and award-winning Blue Note Juke Joint and Blue Note Crossroads Bourbon. Adam Vingan and Derek Mason here with you. Willie Donnick will be joining Chase McCabe in Hendersonville at the grand opening of a new Pella showroom from 2 to 6, filling in for Jared, although Willie was kind enough to make a stop to handle his commissioner responsibilities for silly underdog picks. So before we went to break, I asked for your texts and calls at 615-737-1025. If you had an opportunity to ask Ran Carthon a question, because I believe that Ran Carthon is doing himself a great disservice by not being more available to answer questions, because in his silence, and we're all guilty of this, in his silence, we're filling in the gaps for him.
Exactly.
So we've got some good questions, and we'll get to some of them here. We'll also get to some of them later because we have Elliot Freeman of Sportsnet joining us at 1 o'clock. Benjamin on our text line says, as a fan, I would love to hear from Carthon that Callahan is our coach and he will get another chance next year. I imagine he gets another quarterback under his tenure, but squash the speculation and back your head coach for next season. Jared from Spring Hill says, if he were to ask a question to Rand, it would be, if your goal was to win this season, in accordance with Amy's thesis statement in January, what did you see in Tony Pollard and not Derrick Henry if you wanted to win? And I think Matt speaks for a lot of Titans fans. He says, the question I would ask Carthon is, how did everything look so good and turn out so bad?
Yeah, that's the $5 question is, how did it look so good at the beginning of the season or, during the preseason? And now, it turned out to be a 1-5 at this point team. I could answer that question for you. It's just like any other NFL team. Look at the NFL teams that are struggling. They don't have a quarterback. Just look at the NFL teams that are struggling. They don't have a quarterback, or they have a young quarterback that is still working his way through the process.
And we're going to see Bryce Young again this weekend. Andy Dalton was in a car accident.
Yeah.
Hopefully he
was okay.
Yeah, he and his family are
okay.
Yeah. But I think suffered a minor injury. And Bryce Young, who was benched a few weeks ago, will be starting for the Panthers again this week.
Exactly. So a season can look promising because you have promise in the quarterback. That's basically what it is, unless you just have a lights out defense and you have pieces everywhere else and you got a young quarterback that only thing you want him to do is hand the ball off. I've been there. And the season looks promising, and it turns out to be just that, because you have playmakers everywhere else, but the young quarterback is still learning. Well, the Titans thought they had the young quarterback, and they thought that the pieces they were adding would help. But as we sit, the young quarterback isn't working out, which is, no matter how you slice it, that's the big problem. That is the biggest problem that they have. It's not the GM. It's not the head coach. It's not the right tackle. It's the quarterback. Because teams that have their quarterback, they may have deficiencies everywhere else, but the quarterback masks it. Patrick Mahomes has deficiencies on his team.
Has he not thrown more interceptions than touchdowns this season?
But he's the guy, so he finds a way to win.
Yes.
Because he's the quarterback, and they got a hell of a play caller and a head coach. But that's beside the point. But the main elixir is the quarterback, and they have that guy. They're still trying to figure out their passing game because they got guys injured. Their running game is starting to pick up, but it wasn't the same since Pacheco left. Their offensive line is they're okay, but they were better last year. The defense is holding their own, but they're able to do all of it. They're able to be 6-0. Why? Because they have the quarterback, and the moments that he needs to shine, he shines big. Okay? The Titans don't have that. and they have problems in other areas. But the main problem is the quarterback. I guarantee you, if Titans had a quarterback, they wouldn't be in the position that they're in now. I guarantee you that. And everyone would be saying, Rand is a great GM. But because they don't have a quarterback, now they are questioning whether Rand and whoever else is the right people for the job.
Aaron on our text line says if he could ask a question to Rand Carthon, that would be, why are you so terrible at your job? Now, I always found this interesting from a reporter's perspective, because when things aren't going well for a team that you cover as a reporter, there's often a sentiment from certain fans that you're not asking the tough questions. You need to hold these people accountable. And I think what often happens is that fans conflate asking tough questions with asking questions that are phrased like Aaron's question. Why are you so terrible at your job? You're not going to get a good answer out of that question. It's just not going to happen. There are ways to ask pointed questions about a team or a general manager, and the team's deficiencies, moves that the general manager has made. There's a way to ask pointed questions, tough questions, without confrontation.
But that's people when they say stuff like that, and no knock to the texter, but when you say that you hadn't been in those rooms to ask those questions, you're not familiar with how the whole process works out. You go up to a GM and ask, why are you bad at your job? He's gonna look at you sideways like you got three heads, and he's not gonna answer any question that you have. So there's tact in all of this. You got to be, you got to be a little, it's a certain way to ask certain questions to get what you want. You can't just, hey, Adam, why you suck? Adam gonna look at you like, serious? Next question, please.
You're not going to get.
You don't suck, Adam, but I'm just saying.
Like, look, Paul Gaharski gets a lot of crap from Titans fans, but Paul is good at asking pointed, tough questions that are not insulting to the people he's asking those questions to.
And I think Jared does the same thing, especially when he has Barry Trotz.
Yes.
He asks hard questions, but it's the way he asks those questions that opens Barry up to want to answer them.
Right. There is a skill to being an interviewer, but the larger point in all of this is that Rand Carthon is doing himself a disservice by not making himself more available. He doesn't need to do every single interview that people request him to do. But I would, if I were advising Rand Carthon as a communications expert, I would tell him at the end of the NFL trade deadline, because you might have more moves to make at the end of the NFL trade deadline, that day when the market is closed, you get up there and you answer questions. Not to,
which is fair.
Yeah, not to Titan. I mean, Titans employees will be a part of it, but it will not be like a one-on-one sit-down interview with a Titans employee. It will be a news conference that all reporters can attend, and you will answer questions.
And listen, you can say, hey, listen, I got a few minutes here, and you can filibuster all you want to, because now you've made yourself accessible, and you answer the questions the way you want to. And if Adam asks you a question, you can take 10 minutes on that question and say, all right, we got a few more questions. That's it. Or Robbie can say, hey, y'all, we got a few more questions and that's it. But at least people will say, you know what? He got in front of the media and he asked whatever the questions were. He may have went long-winded on a few, but he made himself available to ask what people deemed the tough questions.
615-737-1025. Coming up next, we will be joined by Elliot Freeman, Sportsnet NHL insider, co-host of the 32 Thoughts podcast. We'll get into the Predators and all things NHL with Elliot. Coming up next, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
Mark your calendars. November 9th, the Iron Goddess all-female show is coming to Nashville. All right. Meet us at the fairgrounds as the female riders from all over the world will be in attendance. Come out and see some of these beautiful custom bikes. There will be a lot of bikes out there, people, from choppers to mini bikes, from cruisers to sports bike. I used to love choppers when I was little, man. I used to look at those things like, man, those are the coolest things. All makes and models are encouraged to come. Get your tickets now at IronGoddessMotorcycleShow.com, which is sponsored by our friends Law Tigers. Enjoy a day of live music, vendor village, tasty foods, and so much more. Show off your bike in one of their many competitions and win cash prizes. All spectators are welcome, and kids under 16 are free with the paid ticket. So mark your calendars again, November 9th. IronGoddessMotorcycleShow.com. Get your tickets. Can't wait to see you there.
D-Mace, Vingen, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Derek Mason and Adam Vingen here with you. Willie Donick joining Chase McCabe from 2 to 6. And joining us now on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, Elliot Freeman, Sportsnet NHL insider, co-host of the 32 Thoughts podcast. Elliot, by the next time we speak to you, the Nashville Predators will have made a trip to Tampa Bay. The Predators are in Tampa on Monday, and what will be an emotional return to Amalie Arena for Steven Stamkos. I'm curious for your opinion on this. Of course, the organization is going to give him a tribute. The fans are going to give him a standing ovation. But the split between the Tampa Bay Lightning and Steven Stamkos, I wouldn't call it acrimonious, but there were certainly some hurt feelings on Steven Stamkos's part. It certainly feels like it, at least, when they decided to go their separate ways. What do you make of Stamkos's return to Tampa coming up on Monday?
Well, it's going to be really something. It's going to be emotional. There's no question about that. Those feelings are real, Adam. I know we all tiptoe around them a little bit because we don't want to speak for someone if they're not going to say it directly themselves, but those feelings are real. I bet it's going to be a big money on the board night. I bet you that. And for people who aren't familiar with what that means it's a pretty big hockey tradition that when players go up against their former teams, they put a number on the board, and if the team wins, that number goes towards like the team party fund or the players fund or something like that. And over the years there have been some pretty big numbers put on that, and when you play your former team, it's kind of your duty to go up there and put a big number on the board. So that'll be a big number on the board night in Tampa. It's funny, Adam, Matt Sundin, the former captain of the Maple Leafs, is up here. He's doing a book tour right now. And the first time he came back to Toronto after he left, he played for Vancouver, and he talks about that in the first chapter of the book, how he really thought he was going to get booed. And I remember I covered the game when he came, when he had the face-off, and they did the big. It was just a car accident that happened right near me here. They had a big jumbotron celebration for him, and the crowd went crazy, and he couldn't take the face-off. The linesman stepped back so the ovation could continue, and finally Sundin told him he had to drop the puck, and he did. So I don't know if it'll be quite like that, but I bet you Stamkos will be emotional.
In your 32 Thoughts column this week, which came out last night, you said, quote, Predators general manager Barry Trotz has the second best hockey radio hit on the game in Nashville. I wonder who number one is. But you referenced the interview that Barry Trotz did on our station earlier this week, talking about trading for a center. You also mentioned the Calgary Flames and the Chicago Blackhawks as teams that are looking for centers. And as you have said, and you wrote yesterday as well, the two toughest things to find for a team, a stud defender and a top center. As you also note, we're still in the seeing what we've got phase of the NHL season, but eventually some names are going to emerge, particularly at center, for teams looking for a fix at that position. Again, it's early, but when those names start to trickle out, who are you expecting to see as targets for teams looking for centers?
Well, that's a great question, Adam. First of all, you have to see who kind of falls out of the race here. So I think that's one of the things that we kind of watch is, are there teams who are out, and you start to say, okay, is this player available? Is that player available? I would say that I probably watch this. And I think it was pretty loud on him all of last year. And it got quiet after the draft. It's been quiet right now. And, Trevor Zegras, they have asked him to change the way he plays. He's a really talented guy. And he's trying to do it. They rewarded him. They beat San Jose, I think the first Saturday of the season, and Zegras scored the empty netter. They put him out there to protect a one-goal lead, which would not have happened last year, I don't think. And he did it. And he's never going to be 100% necessarily perfect two-way player, but he's trying to be better, and he's a really talented offensive player, really talented. Depending on how things go in Anaheim, they've got a lot of good young players. I think that's one name that everybody's kind of keeping track on. I'll tell you this, there's a player you guys know really well, and that's Michael Granlund. And, You know, at some point in time, I wonder if San Jose, like, they're off to a really tough start. Celebrini's their guy. He's out of the lineup. They haven't won since he got hurt. And, you know, Granlund's there, and he's a veteran. And that's a guy I think you're going to start to hear his name at some point in time.
Talk with Elliot Friedman, 32 Thoughts Podcast. Check it out. Now, Elliot, Barry went on with Jared Stillman earlier this week. And
yep.
This
second best hockey radio hit on your show, right, Derek?
Absolutely. Right. And this was right before, obviously, them beating the Boston Bruins or shutting them out this past the other day. And he spoke with honesty. And
yes,
maybe some guys don't like that. Maybe some guys don't matter. It doesn't matter to them. But is that is the way Barry is that the norm when it comes to GMs in hockey, or is he an exception to the rule? And is he able to do it because he has such a veteran locker room?
I think, you know, Derek, it's funny as I was listening to it, because I always go back and I listen to Barry's hit every week after if I can't catch it live online. And the one thing I was thinking about that, there are, like, I'll say this. You'll get times where someone says, I want to come on the air, and you know that they've got a message that they want to get out, okay? And when someone calls you and says, I want to come on, it's like, all right. Like, you're starting to stretch. You're like, this is going to be a good one. And it usually is. But I think a lot of times, like, Barry comes on consistently. I don't know how many GMs do that anymore, where they have a weekly radio hit. It used to be fairly common. But for as consistently as Barry comes on, he's about as honest as it gets. And I think he recognizes that, you know, this is his opportunity to get his voice out there in the market, and he's very aware. He's acutely aware of that, and I think that's very good. And secondly, I think he's just a really honest guy. I would say he's more honest than most. Like, there's things he won't tell you. There's things he'll keep private, like most GMs will. But when he's out to talk, he's not hiding what he thinks from you. I think this. I think that the most interesting thing I thought he said was about, like, if this doesn't work in 2 years, we go to everybody and we figure it out, like, how it goes. Well, first of all, I'm not worried about that. I think that everything will sort itself out in Nashville. But secondly, I would say, Derek, it's pretty rare to hear someone say that. I think you guys have a pretty mature dressing room. I think you guys have a lot of guys who've seen a lot of things. I don't think he's saying anything there that group can't handle. And I'll tell you this, though, too, Derek, and you know it too as a player. If you have the off season you just had, it doesn't work for 2 years, you're going to expect that there's going to be changes.
Absolutely. Now, give your assessment of Tommy Novak, because he's been one of the bright spots, even though this team has only won one game. But Tommy Novak has been one of the bright spots on this line. He went from the second line to the third line, and he just seems to produce this season. And I know it's early, but this is one of the guys at the beginning of the season that you needed to take another step. And you needed to see that improvement from him, and thus far you have.
Yeah, I think he's a really talented guy. Like, I like watching him play. You can see the gifts there. You can see how talented he is. I think the one thing that we're trying to figure out here, Derek, is on a team that can win the Stanley Cup, does he work in that 2 slot? And the one thing I'm kind of wondering about just by watching is if the Predators think he's sort of like a better 3 than he is 2. I think they'd like to see him be a 2. I think everybody would. But I just don't know yet if they feel he's consistent enough and two-way enough to be that 2. So that's, I think, the thing we're looking for. Like, I have no doubt this guy can score. I have no doubt this guy has really good offensive instincts. I just don't know if he, like, the one thing I look at with the Predators right now is I think they get, I don't know, nervous is the right word. I might be misspeaking there, but I think they're a little bit unsure he can play against the best lines in the league.
Elliot Freeman of Sportsnet joining us on D-Mace Vingan and Donick. Elliot, one of the best stories of the first month of the NHL season, in my opinion, has been the Utah Hockey Club. They suffered a 4-0 loss the other day, but a 4-1-1 start, overtime wins against the Bruins and the Rangers. And they delivered some incredibly tough news to their fans yesterday. 2 defensemen, Sean Durzi and John Marino, out for months after undergoing separate surgeries. They've gotten off to a great start. They're in the mix in the Central Division. What is Utah's plan to replace Durzi and Marino on defense in the long term?
Well, also too, Adam, they're both righties. Is even harder. There's more lefties than there are righties, and when you lose 2 righties like that, that's a real big challenge. And one of the things I really felt was, I was wondering if they would go out quickly and go get someone, and they are determined not to make a panic move that they regret. Like, that's the number one signal they send out to everybody. We are not going to do something that makes us feel good for 10 minutes and then makes us feel terrible for 10 years. Adam, the vultures circle. When they sense weakness, they're like, all right, how can I take advantage of this guy? I have a line that's like, when you're really struggling in the NHL, they don't throw you a life preserver, they throw you an anvil, right? So I think that's one thing that Utah's trying to do is, okay, internally, can we handle this with what we've got? Now, I think they're out there, they're looking, they're checking, they're going to see, eventually they might do something, but I think the biggest thing they'd like to do is, can we tread water long enough that we don't have to make a panic move?
Last one for you, Elliot. Which of the following teams, their starts to the season, is most surprising to you? The 5-0-1 Calgary Flames, the 5-1 Washington Capitals, or the 4-0-2 Minnesota Wild?
I would have to say Calgary. I think the other two, it makes perfect sense as to why you're asking. But to me, Calgary is the team that's the most surprising. If you look at the rosters, they probably have, I don't know if thinnest would be the right word, but I think you would look at their roster with some of the younger players and things and say, I'm not sure that would work for me after 6 games. The thing too, Adam, is they were losing 4-1 early in their opener in Vancouver, and they came back and they won that game. And I think that just excited them and gave them such a boost. Like, that is a team in the middle of a rebuild. They've had a lot of crazy stuff happen there. They've been in the news for a lot of the wrong reasons over the last 2 years. And I just think that opener, giving them a chance to feel good about themselves, they have ridden that wave since. I don't think it's going to continue. I think even deep down they would admit that, but it's been pretty impressive so far.
Elliot Freeman, Sportsnet NHL insider, co-host of the 32 Thoughts podcast, joining us on D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, as he does every Thursday at 1 o'clock. Elliot, thanks for catching up. We'll talk next week.
All right, and I look forward to listening to number 2 next Tuesday.
We'll let Barry know you said that.
Okay, take care.
Yep.
Elliot Freeman joining us as he does every Thursday. Always love talking hockey with Elliot. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, some pointed words from a former member of the Tennessee Titans about the leadership on this team. We'll share those with you next. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
What guys in offensive leadership when you're talking about that?
I mean, I'm not going to single anybody out, but it's a collective group. I'd say it's just like for me, like I focus on the tight ends. I start with us. There's a lot of guys in the O-line room that a lot of leadership in that room as well. I'm not going to single anybody out and say who's a leader because I think there's a lot of guys that lead in their own ways. But I just think we got to be more vocal about it. That's all.
Why not? I mean, shouldn't the main leaders of the offense be obvious?
I mean, you don't always have to be. You don't have to be, obvious to be a leader. You can lead by example. You can be a vocal guy. It just leadership looks different in different ways. And some guys are vocal. Some guys rather just keep their mouth shut and do the work. But either way, we just got to enhance that. That's all I'm trying to say.
That was Titans tight end Nick Vannett earlier this week when asked by Paul Kuharsky about leadership in the Titans locker room. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. And in conjunction with that question from Paul Kuharsky, he wrote a story at his website with the headline, Titans leadership, especially on offense, is a big question. And as I was reading this story from Paul, there was a quote from Delanie Walker in the story that I found to be quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And Titans fans, they love Delanie Walker. He was a big part of this team for a long time. And this is what Delanie Walker told Paul Kuharsky about the leadership or lack thereof, particularly on offense in the Titans locker room. Walker said, quote, "They did get veterans, but were those guys actual leaders on the other teams? Definitely great players, but were they leaders? We all say we are leaders until you have to lead and motivate other guys to be their best on Sundays. It's easy to lead when you win, but when you start losing, what type of leader do you become?" And now the Titans have lost a player who had those leadership capabilities in DeAndre Hopkins. So Brian Callahan was asked this question, I assume by Paul, the other day. And Callahan mentioned Tony Pollard. He mentioned Lloyd Cushenberry, veteran guys. But I thought Delanie Walker's quote in this story really stuck out to me, just because when Delanie Walker was a member of this team, those were some lean years. And he was considered one of, if not the leader of that offense. So when you hear that, Derek, coming from the person it's coming from, what does that make you think?
I mean, there's some truth in what Delanie said. Like, listen, just because you bring in a marquee player doesn't automatically means that, he was a, leader for his previous team. He could have just been a really good player or a great player. And, when you're on a team that has been constantly winning or consistently winning, if you have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, automatically everyone looks to him as the main leader. And your leadership qualities probably more than likely wasn't on full display. Why? Because you didn't have to. So I'm not going to sit here and say what Delanie said was wrong or completely right or completely wrong. I think there's some truth into what he's saying. And the Titans are now finding out who their guys are. You spoke on D-Hop. I look at D-Hop more of a look at what I do, not what I say.
A lead by example.
Yeah, he's
type.
one of those guys that I'm gonna go do what I need to do in the weight room. I'm gonna do what I need to do in the film room, and I'm gonna be out there giving it 100% in practice and in games. That's how I lead.
I can't imagine DeAndre Hopkins
being a rah-rah guy.
Exactly.
He doesn't come off as one of those guys. But if you just watch him, then you're like, okay, that's what leadership looks like. A guy that just goes about his business. And if I need to ask him a question, I can ask him and he'll give me an answer, or he'll direct me to where I can get the best answer. Those are leaders in regards to, that's his form of leadership. Then there are other guys that are more vocal. So that's why I said what Delaney is saying isn't wrong. And you get to, guys in a sense find out, am I built for leadership? Because you can be a great player, but not necessarily have to be a leader, because some guys are just not comfortable with being that. Not to say that they are horrible at leader. They're just not comfortable at doing that. They'd rather just go out and play great and that be it. Don't ask me no more. Don't put me up on a pedestal and say, you're the face of the franchise, or no, I don't want that. I just want to go out there and do my job and do it at a high clip. So there are guys like that, but now because the Titans are in the situation they're in, it's almost like they're searching for leaders, guys that can hold this ship together. And I do believe they have guys that are capable of doing that. I can't say they're not doing that because I'm not in that locker room, but I do believe they have guys capable of doing it. So that's what they got to figure out is, we identify who the leaders are. And now are those leaders capable once we identify them? Because you can't make someone a leader. It's either they are or they're not. Once you identify them, then you sort of see, okay, but you only identify them after watching them. You just don't. That's why I really don't like the captain thing and all that stuff, because I want to see you for a long period of time. I want to see you through the ups and the downs. I'm not just going to name you captain after a preseason or off season. No, I want to see when the fire gets hot, how you then react. That's the sign of a leader or leadership. So I'm not naming any captains. I'm not naming any leaders. We have a leadership board, but that's all. That's as far as I'm going until I really can see what y'all about. Because this is a young roster, in a sense. Like the players that they're going to count on moving forward. Cushenberry, he's still young. J.C. Latham, he's young. Who else? I don't want to say the quarterback, but look at Simmons. He's a young guy. You got a bunch of young guys on this team that you may think could be a leader, but you need to see him a little bit longer. So again, I'm not sitting here saying that Delaney was right or wrong. There is some truth to what he's saying, but he understood it based upon the situation he was in. And he was the leader of the offense for a good period of time. Because that's all they had. And he showed up each and every game. That's what leaders do. And that's what Delaney did. So he comes from a different perspective. This team is totally different. A bunch of new guys, and they're trying to figure out amongst these new guys and the young guys, who are the leaders? Because they hadn't done enough winning. And these guys hadn't played well.
So I heard two pretty different takes from inside the Titans locker room yesterday as to what's going on. One on offense and one on defense. Let's start with on offense. This was Peter Skoronski about how the Titans have been handling adversity this season.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly haven't shown that so far. I think the whole team and offense especially is when adversity has hit. I think we've just kind of been like, oh, well, here we go. And that's why we've been losing, really, is because we haven't really been able to bounce back from adversity. And I saw that in camp. I think we did a good job of that in camp when we would have some struggles or maybe a bad drive or bad play. I thought we'd bounce back a lot, and we got to get that back because that's really why we're losing games. We've been leading in every game and kind of just giving it away at whatever that inflection point was and not been able to bounce back.
So that was Peter Skoronski. Now, this was Jeffrey Simmons after practice yesterday talking about the trades and where the Titans go from here.
I mean, we all knew what D-Hop brought to the team. At the end of the day, like I said, you know how this thing go. Players come and go. I'm going to miss him for sure, his presence and what he brought to the team. But, we won in 5. I think the focus need to be on the guys in the locker room. How can we be better leaders, especially throughout the week? Let's focus on the small details and focus on everyone just being disciplined, doing their job. I think that's needed to be the focus going forward. But like I said, we lost 2 good players today, including Ernest. Gonna miss playing with him the little time that we had. Another guy that had major respect for just over the small time. But have full confidence in guys that have been here before him, like Jack Gibbons, and the way he carries himself, professionalism. I think we shouldn't miss a beat. The great part about it, especially on defense, our record don't shows it, but we still the number 1 defense, and that's the exciting part about it. That we playing so much good defense, but not great defense. And like I said, just the small things and the details and the discipline could lead us to a better record than we got right now.
So that was Jeffrey Simmons after practice yesterday. 2 different opinions, one from an offensive player, one from a defensive player. I just want to say this, and I know that Jared hammered this before the game against the Bills, and we also talked about this before the game against the Bills. If we wanted to see how good that Titans defense really is, I wanted to see it against a more than competent offense like the Bills, and that defense did not perform well. So I'm kind of tired of hearing we're the number 1 defense. You gave up 34 consecutive points. I know that L'Jarius Sneed didn't play, but number 1 defenses in the league do not give up 34 consecutive points in any game under any circumstances. But I just thought the tone from Skoronski and Simmons was very different yesterday.
Yeah, it's a division. That's basically what it is. One side thinks one thing, and the other side thinks the other. There's a reason why they asked an offensive player that question, then the defensive player that question. What you got to understand is this: the message should be the same across the board. We need to be better across the board. See, Jeffrey's not doing himself any favors here, because what you do is you further divide the room. Again, you further divide the room when you answer questions in that manner. And I understand why he said it, because it's like I want to defend what we're doing, and I get that part. But when you have, and I'm sure he didn't hear what Peter Skoronski said, and for y'all asking a second-year player that is not playing well a question like that, man, come on, seriously, ask somebody that's playing well, a veteran. Ask Cushenberry that question, okay? Don't ask a young guy that question. But what you get is you get a division, and you see it as clear as day. The defense, and I'm going to say that Jeffrey Simmons speaks for the defense. Excuse me. Jeffrey Simmons speaks for the defense, and Jeffrey says we are still the number 1 defense. We are doing our job, basically. We're the number 1 defense in the NFL. And then you have another guy on the other end, the offense, saying, yeah, we need to get some things straight. We need to focus more. We need to do this. So we're both looking at the same things, but we both have 2 different perspectives. And that perspective is dividing the room. Because now I can look and say, well, Jeffrey says this and says the defense is doing what they need to do. And then I look over here and Peter's saying this, and obviously the offense is not doing what they need to do. So you're creating. See, what some of these players don't realize is that by the words you speak, you could be creating a division, or you can be creating a cohesive group. The way that these questions were answered, it's division. That's how people are going to look at it. Well, Jeffrey thinks that the team is doing a good job on defense. They're the number 1 defense. And obviously the offense ain't doing what they need to do. Listen to Peter Skoronski. So they have a locker room that is divided right now. That would be my take from hearing both of those answers from an offensive guy and a defensive guy. I would have liked for Jeffrey Simmons to not throw in. And again, maybe the question led him that way, but I would have liked for Jeffrey to just leave we're the number 1 defense out and just say, hey, listen, we need to play better. Stats, they're not everything. Obviously they're not, because we're the number 1 defense and we're still losing. So stats ain't everything. We all need to be better. You answer it that way, there's no division in the room. But because you didn't, you got defensive and you had to justify what you were saying. You said that now you created you create division within a team that didn't need it. It's what Will Levis said a week ago, started the division. It's what, Calvin Ridley said out of his frustration. And I love what Adams said. I mean, not Adams, but Diggs said. He said, we frustrated all of us, man. He didn't bring up with a number one defense. That's the veteran guy that understands it. He gets it. He's not making it about one side or the other. He's like, we all frustrated. We all got to do better. He didn't scream, we're the number one defense, because he understands it. He's a guy that gets it. Jeffrey was on the defensive in there. I would have loved for him to say, and like I've said before, I can't expect people to say the things that I would say in those situations. But he has to realize that the minute that comes out of his mouth, we're the number one defense, there's going to be division. Because it's like, we're doing our job. Offense, y'all need to do your job. That's what it does.
615-737-1025. We have heard from DeAndre Hopkins for the first time as a member of the Kansas City Chiefs. We will tell you what he said coming up next. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063, The Game.
Hey, this is Derek Mason, and you heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you have set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a resolution to shed some extra pounds, only to come up short. At Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his staff understands the frustration of this cycle, and this is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you, people. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D-Mace, Vingan and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Derek Mason and Adam Vingan here with you. Willie Donick will be joining Chase McCabe live next on Stillman and Company. You may have heard Jared earlier today filling in for Chase and Big Joe. We're swapping some stuff around today, but that's what we do. And if you would like to see Willie and Chase live, they are at 256 East Main Street in Hendersonville for the grand opening of a new Pella Windows and Doors showroom. There will be raffle prizes given away, including Predators tickets. So if you're in the area, you want to win some Predators tickets and some other giveaways, go see Chase and Willie live today from the new Pella showroom at 256 East Main Street in Hendersonville. We have heard from DeAndre Hopkins for the first time as a member of the Kansas City Chiefs. Here is in part what he said.
DeAndre, what you've done in your career, what does it mean to you to come into a building that knows how to win championships and the approach that it takes?
It means a lot. It takes your game to a different level. It takes your focus, your drive, knowing that you're playing for something. It takes your game to a different level. I haven't played meaningful football in a couple years since, we probably started 8-0 in Arizona. So, it takes your game to a different level.
Yeah.
That was DeAndre Hopkins. He hasn't played meaningful football in a minute. And it's true. DeAndre Hopkins hasn't appeared in a playoff game since 2019 with the Houston Texans. He was a part of the 2021 Arizona Cardinals team that he referenced that started 7-0 and finished 11-6, but he was injured and did not appear in the Cardinals' wild card loss to the Los Angeles Rams. DeAndre Hopkins, in his illustrious career, has not made it past the divisional round of the AFC playoffs or NFC playoffs. So this is an opportunity for him to appear at an AFC championship game, a conference championship game, for the first time in his career. So if you're a Titans fan and you hear that, you might think to yourself, oof, that stings. But he's right.
Hey,
he didn't play meaningful football as a member of the Tennessee Titans. He hasn't really played meaningful football, as he said, since he was a member of the Arizona Cardinals in 2021. But as he also said, and Derek, you know this full well, when you have the opportunity to win and you know that your team is in position to win, it makes you raise your game up a little bit.
That's not how I think.
It's not.
There's nothing wrong with how Hop thinks. That's him, and he has his own perspective. So any chance I get an opportunity to step on a football field, I'm trying to elevate my game. Has nothing to do with wins and losses.
But it doesn't help when you go. You don't think it helps him be that extra bit more motivated now that he's playing for a team with aspirations versus a team that had none?
Again, I'm only telling you me.
Okay.
This is only me. My willingness to be the best player that I could possibly be wasn't tied to wins and losses. Because there were times where I knew, like, man, we are depleted as a team. And there's no way in hell we're going to win this game. But I still went out there and I had to elevate my game. Or my thought was, I need to elevate my game to give the team an opportunity to win. I need to do my job and do it at a high level in order for the team to win. Now, did it always happen? No, it didn't always happen. But that was my thought process. I didn't say, okay, we're winning now, or I'm in a winning organization. Now I need to pick it up. No, but there's nothing. That's D-Hop. I understand what he's saying in the sense of you're going from a team that wasn't winning to another team. Now you're reinvigorated. It's like a new life. That, okay, I understand. Like you got a fresh breath of air. And it's like, okay, whoo, all right, now let's go. I understand it from that standpoint, but I didn't tie, my ability to go out and perform at a high level. I didn't tie it to wins or losses. I didn't tie it to, okay, we got a shot at winning the Super Bowl. We don't have a shot at winning the Super Bowl. My whole thing was go out there and play the best I can possibly play because they're paying me to do a job that I enjoy doing. That was my, and I may be different from other people, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're asking me the honest truth, it's like, that's not how I'm wired. And again, that's Hop, and I'm sure he has a different lease on life going to Kansas City. But just because you have a new lease on life, it shouldn't all of a sudden now elevate your competitiveness or your willingness to go out there and fight. I know you're frustrated. I said this yesterday. Frustration should turn into focus, which should allow you to elevate your game anyway. So whether I am on the Carolina Panthers, on the Kansas City Chiefs, the Tennessee Titans, or the Baltimore Ravens, if I'm frustrated, I'm going to focus even more. I'm going to elevate my game. Win, lose, I'm elevating my game each and every time I step up. But I'm just wired different, man. Some people don't think that way, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's cool. But I'm wired in the sense of, I don't care if we're winning or losing. I'm coming at you. I'm not stopping. We're going to play this until the whistle blows and the game's over with. Unless we're just running the football. But still, I'm blocking. But I'm always looking to elevate my game, regardless if we're winning or we're losing.
I'm thinking of it like, from my perspective, like if you're in a dead end job, you know, there's no room for advancement. You're not going anywhere. You dread going to work. I'm thinking of the movie Office Space as I describe this. You're going to a cubicle and your boss is a pain in the neck, and you're not motivated. You don't want, you go to work because you need to make a living, but you're just not motivated. But then an opportunity at a new job comes up and everything sounds great, and maybe you're getting a little bit of a raise, and maybe your boss isn't going to be hovering over you, and you see room for growth. You're going to go into that job that day, and you're going to perform better, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. You are going to probably perform better because you feel like there's something to look forward to.
And you know what? If you walked in my office and told me that, I ain't hiring you. Okay. I'm going to fire. No, I'm being honest.
I hear you.
I'm going to fire you, or I'm not going to hire you, because we're doing great now. But what if the stock market hits and we take a dip and then everything seems to be up? Am I now going to come to my job and like, man, I don't feel like being here. We're on a downward spiral. Where just a month ago or 2 months ago, when we was on high, everybody came in high-fiving one another, glad to be at work. That's how you got to look at it. And I think sometimes people look at it, again, I can't expect people to think and see things the way I think and see things, okay? Because I would have said, which would have been sort of like, dude, you can't say that because everybody's not in your position. And I get that. I would have liked to say, well, you can quit if you don't like the job. You can quit. You can go look for another job. But I know everybody can't just up and quit their job. I get that part. But Chris Sanders told me a long time ago, he said, listen, don't let what they are doing and what's going on, make you feel a certain way or upset your joy or take your joy away. Don't let what's going on and what they're doing take the joy away from you. And he was right about that, because the minute I switched, everything became much better, whether I was playing or not. I went in there with an attitude. I'm going out here and I'm having fun and I'm doing my job to the best of my ability, and hopefully they will recognize it. And Lord behold, because of some injuries, unfortunately, they were able to recognize it. If I would have took that stance, I would have never gotten to the place I was at, because I could have stayed in that place crying and whimpering and man, no. I don't want you on my team then. Or I don't want you in my business, because there will be a time where we're not a Fortune 500 company, or there will be a time where we got to lay off people. And if you're going to take that attitude, I might as well not even hire you right now. That's just me.
I certainly don't begrudge DeAndre Hopkins.
No, I don't begrudge. No. And that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I don't.
You just can't
begrudge him. Yeah, but that's not me.
Yeah.
I can't. That's not me. I can't understand that.
Understood. Speaking of wide receivers, the NFL has suspended the Lions wide receiver Jameson Williams 2 games for a PED violation. So Jameson Williams will not be available for the Lions game against the Titans on Sunday. Who knows how much of a difference that's going to make? But Jameson Williams, a good receiver, unavailable.
They still got Brown.
They do. They do. We shall see what happens there. I'm curious to see what DeAndre Hopkins looks like. It sounds like he's going to play on Sunday.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Hop went there and the Kansas City Chiefs wanted to rub it in the Titans' face, and they threw him the ball like 9 times, and he ends up with like 6 catches for 67 or 70 yards.
But then we're moving towards 60% of the snaps.
I know, but then they can scale it back when Juju comes, because Juju's hurt. So when Juju comes back, they can scale it back. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's the day that Hop has, if he does play.
The Chiefs are at the Raiders, the 6-0 Kansas City Chiefs, at the Las Vegas Raiders, where DeAndre Hopkins will make his Chiefs debut. That'll do it for us today. We'll have the full group back together tomorrow. Chase and Willie filling in for Jared on Stillman & Company coming up next.